are new to this curly journey and have no idea where to start, then let me be your guide. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a licensed hairstylist with over 20 years of experience, and on this channel I use those 20 years of experience to help you have healthy, happy hair, and also be your curly hair guide. So first things first, let's just get this out of the way for starting your curly journey, because the sooner that you realize this, the less frustrated you're going to be in the long run. And that is to embrace your curls. Your curls. The reason I repeat that is because everybody's curls are different. Everybody's journeys are different. I know that there are a lot of curly transformation videos out there, or pictures where you see somebody who starts off with really straight or wavy hair and they wind up with these lovely, tight, nicely defined, beautiful coily curls. And these images can make it seem like these results are attainable for anybody who takes care of their hair and follows a certain method. However, you can't achieve that unless that's actually your curl pattern. The only thing that you can do is to take very good care of your hair, get it back to health, and then that way your hair is able to curl to its own potential. You cannot change your curl pattern. So embracing your own curl pattern and your own hair is going to lead to a lot less frustration and discouragement as you continue your journey. Another thing that'll help you in the long run is to learn to embrace the frizz. You've got curly hair. That means you've got frizz. Even if you have wavy hair, you've got frizz. Frizz is the gift that comes along with curly or wavy hair. And as much as we like to try to get rid of the frizz or to diminish the frizz, there is no getting rid of the frizz. We can minimize it and we can use products to help tame it. However, eventually it's going to win out on the battle and we're gonna lose. So the best thing you can do is learn to embrace the frizz. Now, frizz can actually offer a few benefits, such as giving you some volume. So that's functional frizz. And frizz doesn't necessarily mean that your hair is unhealthy. It's just a part of having curly and wavy hair. However, that being said, there's also nothing wrong with trying to, at the very least, minimize it to a certain extent so that you can get from one wash day to the next without being a fluffy frizz bomb throughout the entire span between wash days. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I try to do that as well. It's one of the reasons why I like hard hold gels, because I find that it helps tame the frizz and gets me better longevity between wash days. But I can never eliminate my frizz. I can get close to frizz-free results on wash day, but I can never completely get rid of it, and most people aren't either. And you might see those pictures on Instagram where people have completely frizz-free hair and they may not have photoshopped it. However, they might have been able to get that look for that picture, but what did it look like 3 hours later as they're going about their life and they're moving their head and their hair is rubbing against their shirt, or as they're walking around and the wind is blowing, or they walk outside and there's humidity. So yes, people can have frizz-free pictures on Instagram, but what did it look like as they were going about their daily life? So what might seem to be the most perfect curls that you're looking at may not be so perfect in actual real life. It's just perfect on Instagram. Which then brings me to my next point of not comparing yourself to others. Comparing yourself to other people is just never gonna be a way to feel better about yourself. It's just going to keep you down and keep you unhappy and keep you frustrated and discouraged with your own hair. So definitely don't compare yourself to others, and don't even compare your hair to maybe other days. Like, for example, you might have had a really banging wash day one day where you had like these nice defined curls that are shiny and juicy and luscious and not a bit of frizz to be seen. And then you do the same dang thing and the same routine and the same products and everything, and your hair decides that it's not going to do the same thing. That's also life with curly hair. So it's best not to compare it by days. The best thing that you can do for your hair is to simply keep doing what you're doing and work on moving towards restoring the health of your hair and keeping it healthy going forward. So my next point is going to sound a little bit strange coming from somebody in the curly community, because this one is literally all over the place. It is curl type. Everything hinges on curl type. If you've done any sort of searching around the internet, looking for anything about curly hair. And if you found this video, I have to believe you've done some searching on the internet and looked up curly anything, looked up curly hair, looked up curly girl method. You've probably heard about curl type, you've probably seen curl type charts, and you've probably seen recommendations based on curl type. So how often you should wash your hair based on curl type. How often you should do deep treatment based on curl type. What products you should use based on curl type. So I understand the appeal of wanting to create these curl types, look at a chart, compare your curl to the curl in the chart, say, I am a whatever, and you fit into this category, say 3A, and now I know everything that I need to do with my hair because I have all these recommendations. I know what products to get. I don't have to experiment. I don't have to spend a lot of money. I don't have to do all of these different things. That would be very easy, so I understand the appeal. Unfortunately though, curl type, in the grand scheme of things, does not matter. I know that that sounds awful. I know that that sounds counter to everything that you've heard, but it really doesn't matter. You wash your hair based on your scalp. You condition your hair, and the products that you select for conditioning and deep treatments, that has to do with the condition your hair is, whether it's healthy or damaged. And a lot of the products are also based on whether or not your hair is fine or coarse, and that'll determine whether or not your hair is easily weighed down or not so easily weighed down. There are other factors that just mean a heck of a lot more in determining all of your products and determining your wash schedule and determining your deep treatments, and other than your curl type. Your curl type is last on the list for deciding those things. And the reason why is because they use the way curl typing and curl type charts and all of these things based on curl types are structured is they do it based on stereotypes. And it's the stereotype that if your hair is wavy, that it is fine, and that if your hair is tight coily, that it is coarse, and that is not true at all. I have had my hands in hundreds of hair, from the straightest of straight to the tightest of coils and curls, and everything in between, and I can tell you that that is not true. Hair does not get coarser as it gets curlier. That has nothing to do with it at all. You can have very tightly coiled hair that is really fine, and you can have wavy hair that is really coarse. In fact, my daughter has wavy hair that is really coarse and really thick, and it's a lot like mine, just hers is wavy instead of like the curl wave whatever combination thing that I've got going on. So, and I'm actually going to be having her on my channel in the future to show you what wavy hair looks like that is coarse and thick and not the stereotypical fine hair. So this is why you cannot go by your curl type. And the sooner you come to this realization and pay more attention to the other properties of your hair, the more likely you are to have success in trying to find products that work for your hair instead of trying to come up with something that works for your curl type. And you might say, well, Michelle, what about this person who is a YouTuber and she's got hair that is my same curl type and these products work for her? What if I tried those because we have like basically the same hair? Well, do you? Are you sure that you have the same hair? You might have the same curl type, but is her hair coarse or is it fine? Is it high density? Is it low density? What condition is it in? Is it high porosity, low porosity? And while some people might actually mention some of those things, not everybody gets it entirely accurate either, because I've had a lot of people tell me that they have really thick hair. And as somebody who's seen and worked with many different heads of hair to have a really good grasp of what is thick and what is not thick, I can tell you there's a lot of people who think their hair is thick and it's not, or they think their hair is thin and it's not, because most people don't have the same frame of reference for hair that I do. I have hundreds of people to compare to try to determine where things are on the scale of thinnest to thickest, finest to coarsest, but most people don't have that, so they are unaware of that spectrum and where they fall in that. So just because they give you some of these statistics on their hair doesn't necessarily mean that those are correct. So another thing that might also help you save yourself some frustration, maybe even some money, and maybe even stop yourself from feeling like a failure is learning that the curly method is just a method for caring for curly hair, and it is not the only method for caring for curly hair. There are a multitude of other ways to care for your hair. The best thing that you can do for your specific hair is to find the things that work for your hair type. Not just your curl type, but your hair type, is to be able to start learning how to diagnose what's going on with your hair and identifying what it needs and then listening to what it needs. That's the best thing that you can do. And that is what this channel is all about, is me giving you the information and the tools so that you can do that for yourself and for your hair to get the best out of it and to try to achieve the results that you're looking for. And on that note, I'm going to mention my playlist of hair care basics. I have a lot of them. I'm going to be touching on some of those subjects in this video. However, I'm not going to go in depth because we'd be here for hours, and I don't think anybody wants to sit here and watch a video that's going to last 5 hours with me just chatting away, blah, 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 blah. No, nobody wants that. So I would highly recommend that after this, you go check out my playlist and look for whatever it is that you're most interested in: shampooing, conditioning, deep treatments, all of those things, diffusing hair, the styling techniques that I use, all of those things. I have videos on a lot of different hair basics, so I would definitely check those out. And as far as the curling method goes, obviously, if that's a route that you want to go, that's great. If it works for you, that's great. But I do hear about a lot of people that the curly girl method doesn't work for, that their hair actually got worse, or that they felt too restricted, or they felt like they had to throw away all of their old products and start over entirely with brand new products and go from there. And that's not even something that you have to do at all. You don't have to get rid of everything, because the biggest difference between products for curly hair and products for not curly hair is marketing. A lot of the ingredients are the same, and you can find some really good quality products that are not marketed for curly hair that'll work just as well on your curly hair as any of the curly hair products. So on the note of hair products, my next tip for you would be to not obsess over the ingredients. Sure, learn to look for things like protein and moisturizing ingredients so that you can keep your hair in balance. And that is another video that I have in the playlist that I just talked about, is protein moisture balance. So finding those things and knowing what those are the things that I typically look at the most. But otherwise, I don't obsess over ingredients, because even though there's this big long list of products not to use on curly hair, which basically comes about from the curly girl method, I also have a video talking about why I don't follow the curly girl method. As I was saying, don't obsess over all of the ingredients in there. Sulfates and silicones are not bad for you, regardless of what they say. They're just different products, and I'm not too worried about the detergents in my shampoo being sulfates, because I pay attention to the other ingredients that might be in that shampoo that are moisturizing and conditioning. And then with silicones, they react the same way in your hair as butters and oils. They're emollients, and your hair can't tell the difference between the two, so I don't worry about those. And then also, I'm not a chemist, but I do know, even without being a chemist, that there are ingredients that go into products that basically are there to facilitate the production of that product, that don't exist anymore once the product has been created. It either combines with something else to become something else, because that's what happens with chemistry, or it's like evaporated, or it's facilitated, getting the oil phase and the water phase to emulsify, because oil and water doesn't want to mix and it wants to stay separate. So a lot of times you need to put something in there to emulsify those ingredients so that they don't separate and they stay together. So these are the reasons why I suggest not obsessing about ingredients. Like, you could make it your full-time job looking up all of these ingredients and still not really know what you're looking at in there or why it was put in there. So I would highly recommend just learning the protein and the moisture and going from there. So now that we've covered some of those things to get out of the way so that you don't feel like you have to throw everything away, you don't have to get a degree in chemistry to buy yourself some new products, I'm gonna go over things to be looking for when it comes to caring your hair to get you on the road to getting the most out of your curls and allowing them to curl to their fullest potential. So the first one is treatments. If you've been doing a lot of heat damage or you've chemically straightened your hair, you're gonna wanna get your hair back in shape, and treatments are the best way to do that. And you're gonna have to determine what your hair needs, and then you're gonna have to give that to it. So you're gonna have to determine if your hair is very damaged or if it's more on the healthy side. Like, you're gonna have to figure that out. And usually when your hair is extremely damaged, especially with a lot of heat damage or even chemical damage, you're gonna need some moisture treatments, and you're also gonna need some protein, because you can't miss out on protein. That's another thing that goes back to the curly girl method. It relies very heavily on moisture and tends to not pay too much attention to the protein. But if your hair is so damaged that it needs to suck up all that moisture, it does also need protein. Your hair needs to have strength and structure in order to hang on to that moisture that you're putting into it. And you can very easily become over moisturized or even achieve high growth fatigue, which is something you don't want, because that's damage also. So if you are just only focusing on moisture, so you need to learn your protein moisture balance, and you need to pick your treatments in order to get your hair back to health and to keep it in balance with each other and not have too much protein and not have too much moisture. And then once you've picked out your treatments, how often you need to use them, again, depends on the condition of your hair. People will off the cuff say, do deep treatments once a week. Well, not necessarily. If your hair is actually on the more healthy side, you don't need to do deep treatments once a week, especially if you only wash your hair once a week. Then you're doing a deep treatment every time that you wash. Most people don't need that. I definitely don't need that. My hair is not damaged. I do it whenever I feel like I need it. I really don't have a set schedule. I listen to my hair and give it what it needs when it's asking for it. And that's what I suggest that you learn to do as well. And in the beginning, you might have to do deep treatments more often. You might need to do it every time that you wash or every other. And then as you start seeing the health of your hair improve, you can certainly cut back on that so that you don't cause like a protein overload, and you don't cause like an over moisturization, high growth fatigue type situation. The next thing to focus on would be your shampoo. So you definitely want to make sure that you choose shampoos that are going to cleanse your scalp. That's what you choose a shampoo for. Again, I have a video all about shampooing and as well conditioners and deep treatments to go in more in depth, but a shampoo is meant for cleansing and cleansing your scalp specifically. How often you use it is going to depend on how oily your scalp is, or whether or not you have any scalp conditions that you need to address, and not your curl type for sure. Your curl type has absolutely nothing to do with how often you should be washing. If your hair is very fragile and damaged, you can certainly do a pre-shampoo treatment, usually of an oil or a deep conditioner over your mid-lengths and ends to protect your hair as you're shampooing. But there are so many gentle shampoos out there that you can use. So definitely make sure that you're picking something out that has a good detergent in there that is going to keep your scalp clean, but also has some other good ingredients in there that is going to give your hair moisture and protein while it's also cleansing your hair. Okay, so now that we've talked about shampoo, we'll talk about the shampoo on steroids, and that's clarifying shampoo. That's not a sulfate shampoo. Sulfate shampoos are just sulfate shampoos. A clarifying shampoo is one that actually says that it's clarifying, or it can be a chelating shampoo, which helps remove mineral buildup and pollution, which I highly recommend. And it's the only one that I use. I use Malibu Sea Undo Goo because it is chelating and it gets rid of any of those things that might be building up in there. And at the beginning, you might want to start off with a good clarifying shampoo and then go from there with your treatments to help to restore the health of your hair, and then work out your shampooing, when you need to shampoo, what kinds of shampoo. And then after you're shampooing, you use your regular conditioners, your rinse out conditioners. So now your regular rinse out conditioners would be used every single time that you wash. However, if you use a deep conditioner or a deep treatment, you do not have to use a conditioner after you've rinsed out the deep conditioner. That's basically just releasing product. You don't need that, unless of course it says on the treatment that you are going to need to use a conditioner afterwards. Like perhaps if it's a bond builder, you're still going to have to wash it and use a conditioner afterwards, or maybe with a protein treatment you might have to use a conditioner afterwards. However, for the most part, if you're using just a deep conditioner, that can be used as your conditioner that day, and you don't need to use both that and a regular conditioner because, like I said, you're just kind of wasting product. You don't need to do that. While we're on the subject of conditioners, make sure that while you still have that conditioner in your hair, you're using this as a really good time to detangle your hair because it's nice and slimy and slippery, and you can very easily work a detangling brush or a wide tooth comb through your hair, start at the bottom and work your way up. Now that you've washed and you've conditioned and treated your hair, now you're going to be wanting to look for styling products. And the styling products that you choose are going to be based on mostly on whether or not your hair is fine or if it's coarse. If your hair is fine and easily weighed down, you're going to want to choose some lighter weight options. If your hair is on the coarser side, you can definitely use more emollient, heavier products because your hair isn't going to get weighed down nearly as easily, especially if it is coarse and also thick. Your hair is just really dense and has a lot of volume simply by default because of its sheer amount. Also, with your styling products, you're probably going to want to choose some to help maintain the protein moisture balance in your wash day. So you can start off with moisturizing shampoos and move on to stylers that have protein, vice versa. Mix it up. I usually alternate between the two. I'll use a protein shampoo, moisturizing conditioner. Then I use a leave-in that has a good balance of both, and then I'll go back and forth with my styling products. And that's how I like to maintain balance in my hair, and I decide what I'm going to use as I'm going along and feeling what my hair is feeling like, rather than planning out my entire wash day and determining what I want to do. So now when it comes to styling techniques, there are a wide variety of styling techniques, and you can look all over YouTube, and there's people who do finger coiling. I tend to use a Denman-like brush to give my hair nice definition. It also gives it volume because I brush it up and away from my scalp on the top, so it gets a little bit of lift up in there and it's not just flat to my head. So that's the technique that I like, and I do have a video about that technique. A few videos have that technique, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in a card up here. It's also part of my Hair Basics playlist. So if you go check that out, you will find how I like to style. But as far as styling your hair, you're gonna have to experiment with that to find what works. With waves and looser curls, the wetter the hair is when you're styling it, generally the better. If you're looking for volume, then damp styling might be a better option for you. And I mentioned using a brush for the definition. It definitely does that, and it can cause larger curl clumps depending on the sections, the size of the sections that you use when you're defining your hair. So lower density hair might benefit from raking products through the hair or brushing and then raking it a little bit to break those clumps up so that it looks a little bit fuller and not quite so clumped together. Once you've put your styling products in and you've tried out your styling techniques and you've settled on a technique that works really well, I highly recommend diffusing your hair dry. It is actually better for your hair. There's been a study about this that leaving your hair wet for a really long time can actually be more damaging than using a diffuser to dry it. So, and that kind of leads into the high growth fatigue situation that we were talking about, where it can cause damage to your hair by having too much moisture. And if you're keeping your hair wet, plus the products that are on there, which also keeps it a little bit wetter than if you just towel dry your hair and let it air dry, that's gonna dry a lot faster. But if you've put a bunch of products in there to get that squish, squish, squish noise, that works really well for styling your hair. Your hair isn't gonna dry as fast that way with all those products in there. And taking hours to dry is not necessarily good for your hair. Also, if you're in a humid environment, letting your hair air dry is, aside from the fact that it's going to take even longer to dry, you're going to wind up with a lot more frizz. So it just is a lot better to diffuse your hair, and it speeds up the process. You're done with your hair. You don't have to wait around all day, and overall, it's just a much better way to do it. I recommend hovering first with your head upside down to help get a little volume and to keep it away from your scalp so you don't have hair that's stuck to your scalp. And hovering at a distance, I use my blow dryer on high heat and high speed because I like to get my hair dry as fast as possible. I don't want to be here all day drying my hair. So I do use high heat, but I hover diffuse at a distance first. And then as my hair is starting to dry, I will start to bring it closer and closer. And then as it gets even drier still, that's when I'll start cupping the ends. The ends dry a lot faster anyway, so I like to concentrate most of my efforts up on the roots and the mid-lengths before hitting the ends at the end. I also like to hover over so that whatever products that I put in there has a chance to kind of create a nice cast, because then as I'm continuing to dry my hair and I'm flipping back and forth and I'm moving around, I don't have to be too precious with how I handle my hair, because I know that the cast is going to help hold it in place so that I don't kick up a bunch of frizz and create a mess by just drying my hair. And speaking of creating a mess in your hair, definitely keep your hands out of your hair as much as possible while you're drying it. Constantly putting your hands in there while it's in between the very wet stage and the very dry stage is definitely going to create frizz. You're going to lose definition, might even pull out some of the curl. You're going to break up some of those curl clumps. It's just keep your hands out of your hair while it's in between the very wet stage and the very dry stage. So now that you've gotten through all of this entire process of shampooing, conditioning, you're treating your hair, you've styled your hair, you've dried your hair, I highly recommend using some sort of oil or serum over the top to help lock in the moisture and add shine and tame the frizz. And it just helps finish everything off. It's also really good to have a little bit of that on your hands as you're scrunching out the crunch so that you're not creating frizz as you're getting rid of that gel cast. Once you've scrunched out the crunch, if you have any crunch, then you can shake. I like to go like this, shake or fluff afterwards just to get it kind of broken up, get a little bit of volume. Break up the clumps a little bit. You don't have to do this, but if you want to see a little bit of volume and a little bit of movement and not have your hair stuck to your head, I definitely recommend just kind of shaking or fluffing. And you can use a volumizing spray. You can either use a hairspray to help keep it in place, and you can use a hairspray on dry hair after you've done everything like it is right now, or you can put it in when it's wet just before you diffuse, which will also help to avoid the formation of frizz while you're diffusing, because that hairspray will kind of create a nice cast and help hold everything in place as you're drying it. That's how I typically like to use my hairspray. I don't like hairspray in my dry hair, but I do like putting it on my wet hair because I find that I get great hold. And sometimes I prefer a hairspray over using a firm hold gel, because I find that the hairspray, or at least the ones that I use, are typically lighter weight but still give me a really good, really hard hold. Okay, so that sums it up on my various tips on how to start your curly journey. But the biggest tip that I can give you when starting your curly hair journey is just to enjoy your curls and have fun. The journey is exactly that. It's a journey. If you look at it with an end result in mind, you're going to be frustrated and probably disappointed. However, if you just go at it as, I just want to make my hair healthy, and however it looks and however my curl pattern is, that's how it is. So play around, have fun, experiment, and welcome to this wonderful curly world. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content like that, then please hit the subscription button, hit that notification bell while you're at it so you know when I upload. And if there's anything specific that you'd like to see, any questions that you'd like to ask, or you'd just like to say hi, go ahead and leave me a comment. Let's have a chat. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.